Good evening. You are listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting to you as usual from the Pinos Palace, just west of Orlando, Florida, in the Extreme Studios, which I have from the Great Midwest, RDV. And tonight's film, the greatest martial arts movie of all time, 1973's Bruce Lee's Enter the Dragon. RDV, I'm in the Extreme Dojo, the dungeon, some would say, on the bottom floor where all the hardcore training goes in. No AC, no sunshine, no bread, no water, just meat. And we've got to talk about this film because for the 5+ years we've been doing films here on this 80s based channel, we've always talked about how action films have evolved over the years and different cultures. And we've been on a martial arts kick. So he said, why not? Let's watch something that's supposed to be the greatest movie of all time, action wise. Bruce Lee, blah, 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 blah. I got a lot to say about this film, good and bad. Was this a first watch for you?
This was the first watch for me because I've basically been avoiding Bruce Lee movies.
And why is that, sir?
The reason is because he sounds like a damn freaking monkey every time he goes to fight. And it gets to the point where it gets so annoying and it becomes obnoxious.
So you're saying you don't like him wooing and wahing?
Yeah. If he got rid of the noise making noise, wah, like that, he'd actually be a lot better. But I mean, watching this movie, I can't. I'm not gonna lie. The whole first hour was a snooze fest. The only good parts are when you see this movie is when you see either John Saxon or Jim Kelly. Bruce Lee is so freaking boring.
Let the gauntlet be thrown, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. So here's the thing with Enter the Dragon. Just kind of give some perspective as people are piling in the chat here. Obviously, one of the things we've talked about is when we started off this channel, we started doing some Chuck Norris movies. We talked about his template. We've, of course, done some Jackie Chan. We've done some of the Girls with Guns, Cynthia Rothrock in particular, and Amy Johnson and some others. So we've done a lot of different ones, seeing as how we're 80s based and you're a 90s based guy. So you've got the secondary market where there's a lot to talk about.
I'm not really a 90s based guy. I'm an 80s guy too. I was born in 85, but I watch a lot of 80s stuff.
True. And I think the thing about it is when we talk about the 70s, one of the things that we've talked about action films is we haven't gotten to the blaxploitation genre too much like Blackula or Black Belt Jones that has Jim Kelly in it. The one thing about this movie though with Bruce Lee, it's honestly, in my opinion, of the say 3 or whatever he's done, it's the weakest. I think it's a very good looking film. I think the soundtrack's awesome. It's that Lalo Schifrin guy, the Mission Impossible dude. We've talked about him before in other casts. Love John Saxon in here. He's tremendous. Like Jim Kelly, like you. This is a Bond movie with a Bond villain and the secret lair. I mean, it is. Let's be honest.
Yeah. It's Dr. No combined with Bloodsport.
And the other thing too is one of the things I find interesting about this is I'm being ironic here because I'm not the comic book movie kind of guy and all that. I know you guys reviewed on your other channel a lot, but you know what? It's funny. Warner Brothers. This is how you make a big hit because this movie was one of the best of all times in terms of return on capital. It cost like $1 million or so to make at the time, made about $300-400 million at the time. They had a great marketing campaign. They hit a home run making this movie because this is a Hollywood movie that has Bruce Lee in it and other multicultural talents in it to appeal to a mass audience. So you could honestly argue it's watered down, right?
It's a combination of Hollywood with Golden Harvest.
Exactly. So it's not your typical Hong Kong film.
No. So basically, it was a big deal bringing him onto the big screen here too. He'd also been you'd seen him as Kato.
Mm-hmm.
So people fell in love with Bruce Lee through the Green Hornet, I believe. And then
people say that. I don't believe it though.
Honestly, when I watched of the Green Hornet show back in the day, Kato stole the whole when he did the fighting. He was the guy that he stole the scenes,
right?
And I think he had more of a personality, which made him more appealing compared to this movie. He was just kind of like you watch a Jet Li movie, you're gonna get kicks, but nothing else. This, like I said, this whole movie, the two breakout stars in here. I mean, he's like not really breakout, but at least two standout are John Saxon. The con man, the guy is kind of lazy man,
Playboy.
Playboy, yeah. I love it. And then you have Jim Kelly. Jim Kelly, we reviewed Black Belt Jones on this channel already. Entertaining. Even says of the villain, like he says it's like, man, you straight out a comic book. I love it. It's just like the humor. But let's talk about some of the unknowns that, for those who've never watched this movie, very beginning, very fit Sammo Hung fights against Bruce Lee.
Yes.
Was really, really cool. I like that. Jackie Chan's in it for a hot second as he's chasing Bruce Lee's sister through this.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the heavy, who's like supposed to be like, you know, the right hand man of the, I think it's, what's this guy's name?
The right hand of Han, who
Han,
wields his empire little lord with an iron fist, literally.
Or I'd say the left hand, because
Well,
yeah. Honestly, like I said, I this movie was like, it was interesting, but I mean, it was like the best parts of the movie is towards the end, the last 30 minutes, the last 40 minutes. When you see the lair and all that stuff, you see the John Saxon, you know, with being given the tour. Even before that, you get to see you get Han going against Jim Kelly. You know, those are fun. Bolo, Yeung, whenever he's fighting, you know, that's great. He breaks the guys. That was entertaining. But everything leading up to this, like, it was just a snooze fest to me. I mean, it's great to see, like, the scenery. The sceneries were great, and that's honestly, that's one of the best things about this movie, is them being toured. You know, coming to Hong Kong on the boats, seeing everybody.
The character introduction.
I loved how Jim Kelly, you know, and someone say this, you know, today, like, wow, that's, you know, obviously the black guy's gonna say this, you know, but he says, like, you know, it's a ghetto, and wherever we go, there's always a ghetto, and it stinks, you know. And of course, you know, he gets attacked by the cops. You know, in the beginning, I rolled my eyes and I was like, really? But I mean, that's something they would still do today too. But it'd be a little more dragged out. But honestly, though, you have the girl from, I believe she's from, she's not from Mission Impossible. Where's she from? It's Ahna Capri. And
I'd have to look it up.
I don't even put up her IMDb right now. I know I've seen her before. She's been in some other stuff. Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Okay. New Chow, who we talked about recently, apparently is in, according to Anthony in chat there too.
Yeah, she had been in 2 episodes as Abe Melton. That's where, yeah, and she also played Miss Columbo. Remember that? Oh. Anyway, yes. But dude, yeah, Saxon was great in this.
I loved him.
Yeah, his whole thing when him and Jim Kelly, whenever they get together and they're fighting, he's like, "All right, we're gonna bet on, you know." He throws a fight. I love it how he rigs a fight to get money off the guy. It's great. What can I say about Bruce Lee? Bruce Lee, his when he jumps up into the tree, I don't know if that was actually like him on a wire. It kind of looked like it was a little bit.
Or filmed in reverse.
Or filmed in reverse, yeah. But I mean, he does have some nice kicks there. He is fast. But like I said, though, it's like, get rid of the weird stuff like that, because that just makes it so cheesy. It makes it so cheap. And we complain about Jackie Chan doing the comedy style, but if you're going to do a serious like a kung fu movie, and obviously not all of them were serious, there was a lot of them. The thing that Jackie Chan did better than Bruce Lee is Drunken Master, in my opinion. The way he did that, the style, he embraced it and made it more entertaining. Bruce Lee, and at least that's off this film, you know, watching it, was just like, okay, he can do kicks. That's great. So can everybody else. It wasn't really appealing to me.
Well, here's a couple things about Bruce Lee I want to put out there. You know, this movie again is kind of like one of those watershed type things. It's a massive hit, and it was more for American audiences, even though it was big around the world. People coming back from Vietnam at the time. I mean, it was a thing we've talked about this before with action films and
6 years since Vietnam.
Yeah. So it's the right movie at the right time, done the right way with enough foresight, where finally a studio, at least you could say they got luckier, they got it right, whatever. Their function was to make him a star. So you have people that are good, don't drag the movie down, but don't overshadow him, whether you think that, you know, Saxon does or not, or Kelly, and again, because these guys are all legit. The thing is when you look at this movie is so silly and ludicrous. It's the third act of a Bond movie, and I'm rolling my eyes going, God, how can you rate the Bond franchise any more than what you did? And for as far as Bruce Lee goes, here's the thing. I've seen all the Bruce Lee movies many times as a kid. Everyone just talked about all that. Why? Because he was just in the pop culture. And here's the thing. When you die, all of a sudden, you're like God tier status. And, you know, you can be coming off the bench of basketball. And people are like, I don't know, man. He really contributed to that franchise. So, he might need to go in the Hall of Fame. I'm not knocking Bruce here, but there's a big, heavy dose of being overrated here, just like the movie Oppenheimer from
Yeah.
last year.
Did did you not think of, like, when he was giving the tour that's a Saxon, I'm thinking, like, I'm waiting for, like, someone to come in and start shooting and guys falling into the water, go, ah! Explosions everywhere. It's Dr. No. Every single time I see the underground
Well,
lair
but here's the thing with the
on the
movie.
island.
Okay, it's low budget, right? Even though it
Yeah.
looks great, I think it's a great looking film. It's a nice print, beautiful colors, and there's some things I really like about it. We'll get into here too, but it's kind of dark. The character introduction with Bruce Lee is his sister running around being chased by a bunch of guys, and they're going to rape her. So before that, she gets trapped because she makes the fatal mistake of running into a place she can't get out of. She kills herself, and I'm not saying it's not done artistically with the way they shoot the glass and looking up on it. And then there's a callback to it later in the fight, but it's like, yeah, okay, this isn't happy. And I've always told you that I prefer people that seem serious, like they really want to kick ass in a movie. And Bruce Lee gives you that. But I've always thought this about Bruce Lee. Two things. One, he's got an intensity about him. He's got a charisma. It's there. I think the screen captured it well. That was the purpose of this film. I think his philosophy and everything matches up with him. We can argue about how good and how bad Steven Seagal is as a martial artist, if he's legitimate or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
For what he did, they tried capturing the same thing, right? Even though it's a different style. For Bruce, though, I look at him and I go, you know what? All these guys are running around $130, $140. That's fine. But to your point, it's while I like the spectacle of what I'm watching, I just look at Bruce Lee, and I've joked about this before, and I got some heat about this. I kind of wanted to do a series for a couple months, and the rib and the joke would be Bruce Lee versus, and enter, put in a person's name, Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris would wipe the floor with him. Put him in against Michael Jai White. Michael Jai White would destroy him. I mean, go on and on. The whole point is, as great as Bruce Lee is, he was not a fighter. Same thing with Steven Seagal, despite Steven Seagal being 6'3", 6'4". Bruce Lee's in great shape, obviously, super lean. I don't care that he was living the partying lifestyle with mistresses and smoking hash and all the 70s drug stuff. I don't care. He did something in a short period of time, made a mark. And you look at somebody like John Saxon, couple hundred films, great character actor, like Marani's mentioning here in chat. He's known for being a heavy, good-looking guy. I think he's on equal footing with Bruce in this movie. I do. He just pops out at the screen at you like, this guy's having fun. Bruce Lee's just kind of dealing with the movie.
Yeah, like I said, as far as Bruce Lee's popularity, and I'm one of my speculations as far as why this movie blew up so well is because he died.
Absolutely.
And the other part is everybody knew him in Hollywood from being Kato.
Yep.
Everybody loves Green Hornet, that series. So they went on and watched that, and then he goes into this, and then this, this was released a month after he died. So it was like, oh my gosh, this is his last film. We got to go watch this. It's his last movie. So, and that, and it wasn't even him that carried the movie. Like I said, it was John Saxon, and basically you had Jim Kelly. These are the guys that carried it. You had the beautiful Ahna Capri, and then, like I said, you had, Kien Shih, or how you pronounce it. He's supposed to be Han. Han was like another big heavy in this movie too, as far as playing the villain. He was really good at the villain. You had the babes. It looked nice. The scenery was really great. It's in Hong Kong. Honestly, this was a good movie, but not but it wasn't a good Bruce Lee movie. The Bruce Lee was just kind of there.
Yeah. It's a movie it's a good movie, done great, and it was one of those ones that just kind of hit really hard culturally. So you can't say it's not an important film in that sense, because it made all the stuff popular with it, and it captured some themes going on at the time with the the black exploitation thing. And you're like, man, this guy's pimping it with all the ladies. He's taking all of them. But then I think John Saxon one-ups him because he's looking at the blonde and he's like, well, yeah, I have already picked one. And he's staring right at her. It's just like, good choice. I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's silly spy stuff. And we haven't even talked the martial arts.
John Saxon as would have been great as a spy movie, a lead.
Absolutely.
Yes. He doesn't have to be Bond.
No,
he could be the American version. Better.
And the thing too is you get Bolo Yeung, who I think was around 5'8", maybe 190, 200 peak. It's hard to judge these kind of numbers and what you read and all that. And you look at everybody, he dwarfs everybody, and they call him by his name. He gets a lot of time. And I'm like, oh my God, I keep forgetting this. You got Bruce Lee and you got Bolo Yeung, and they don't fight.
Yeah. And my thing is that Bolo Yeung should have crushed John Saxon, basically, and just would have hurt him, and then forcing Bruce Lee to step in and fight against him. So you have David versus Goliath, kind of. And that's, that's honestly, that's why we like the Jean-Claude Van Damme versus Bolo, because Bolo is just massive and just intimidating,
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
saw how he crushed other people. He crushed in the Bloodsport. He hurt the other guy, the big ogre guy,
Mm-hmm.
and he just
Poker.
hurt him. Yeah, I mean, you see him hurting the people, and then he goes against John Saxon. Well, it's like John Saxon just basically beats the shit out of him in 5 minutes, or less. Like I said, we'll probably get hate for this. I understand it, but honestly, I'd rather be honest and tell you that this movie is overrated. Just in the fact that Bruce Lee is overrated. Now, this is going off me just watching this first film. I've never watched any other Bruce Lee movies, but I said it's really distracting when he just acts like a freaking monkey, and then he goes against a bear at the end.
Well, here's the thing what the movie does well. Okay, you talked about the character introductions.
Yeah.
I understand that it's a bit deliberate and slow paced. I didn't necessarily have a problem with it, but it's not an action movie when you think of it that way. And then it turns into the spy movie. We get the background of why he's being drawn in by this special British thing that's had their presence in Hong Kong. We don't really need more of it in that, so I don't even really care about it in terms of the story. I like how each one gets like their little story. It's easy to follow. The one thing I really like too is I like a lot of what I call the natural shot. So we mentioned this before, right? In the last Cynthia Rothrock movie, where I thought there was a great fight scene on one of the boats inside Hong Kong Bay, where you can see everything on the outside, right? With all the ladies fighting her, chasing her down because she's the mysterious opponent. And then here we get them on the junks, the wooden ships there, and we see people paddle in, and everybody looks authentic. I thought this was captured very well. And the thing that they do really well with the colors too is that when they get to the island and they get to the whatever the fight's called, with Han, I like how, despite the fact they've got a bunch of people there, it's very easy to see. It's like, okay, they all wore yellow. All the bad guys wore white, and the good guys wear black. Get it? Because that's kind of what happened with the prisoners underneath too in the fight. So even if you don't know who's who or whatever, the colors, you could go, okay, we're rooting for all the prisoners that are wearing black. The guys in yellow are the main guys, and so all the people in wearing white are going to get their ass beat. So that's cool. You got the stage that Han sits on, talks about stuff, and we'll talk about Han here in a moment. You got all the ladies behind him. Simple, basic, functional. It works for me. I didn't think anything about it. It felt very lush too, the way they shot it. I really thought in terms of that they could have milked that a bit more, but instead they just want to show him walk around in the middle of the night. And of course, Bruce Lee's got the worst lines. He's got no lines at all, besides picking up all the ladies when Jim Kelly's like in there and Han's berating him about leaving. He goes, yeah, I may have been out at night, but I wasn't the only one. It's like, I burned you, buddy, but yeah. I agree with you. This movie is completely overrated. It's not a bad film. And if you're a martial arts fan of any kind, I think you should see it because of how significant it has in terms of the history of movies. And if it wasn't for that being popular, you may not have had, say, the ninja craze with canon films and everything else, because Hollywood's a big copycat, right?
Yeah. So what was really cool, there are some other people that part starting here too as well. Angela Mao. She plays Su Lin in this. And I believe she plays his sister that gets killed. It gets confusing. I can't remember exactly if she was the sister that gets killed in the very beginning, or if she plays the undercover spy. But when she's on this scene, though, when you see her, actually, like, she's actually a really good martial artist. She started some other movies too as well. Not as popular, but she was in what was it? I was looking at Lady Kung Fu, which was the year before this. She was Deadly China Doll. And then Thunderbolt. Like, she's actually a good martial artist, So we actually had other, like, the women in here were actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
When they have he starts throwing up like things in there, and then basically, or the cups or whatever. Like, remember they take their daggers and the hairpins and then do that, and then drop it. I thought that was a cool scene. I mean, also the bad guy being a bad guy was so on point. When he walks in the room, everyone freezes. Even the dancers, even the sumo wrestlers, do not dare move. They're deathly afraid. And I thought that's really great. If you want to prop up a guy being a really intimidating bad guy, the villain, that was awesome.
And what was cool too, and Bruce Lee was responsible for this. you don't realize unless you're really paying attention to later that as he's beating the shit out of Jim Kelly, and then they fall through the wall where all the chicks are getting doped up and all that laughing
Yeah,
and stuff
yeah,
like that. And then he finds out that the people that are protecting him, his bodyguards, because he's paranoid of being assassinated, are all his daughters. I'm like, that's
yeah.
kind of cool. There's like seeds of something you could do there that I go, I don't know or recall at the top of my head a
Oh,
movie that might have explored that.
so the mirror scene, I didn't like it in John Wick. I didn't like it in this either. The mirror room where they're fighting at the end. I was just saying, like, so he smashed the mirrors, but it doesn't do anything. You still can't tell where the guy is, even if he smashed the mirrors. So that's kind of weird. But I did like though, is when they're fighting. When someone gets beat up, you get the fight cam. You get the fist in your face. I love that.
What did you think of the way the action was shot?
I thought it was actually shot pretty decently with the camera work, everything. Whether he was down on the rope, going into the actual sneaking in there, the scenes shooting up the guy, the guard is going, "What's this rope?" And he goes to cut it, and then he's like, "Okay," and then he gets pulled in, gets his beat up. I mean, I love the sneaking around. That was kind of cool. I
like sneaking.
Yeah, sneaky's good. Taking out the guards, very like the guard. Just hope that when he first goes in the room. With all the different hands, you see, I was like, I knew right away. I was like,
that's bad. That was a badass scene because I want to talk about hands some more. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like I said, like when I started noticing there's all the left hands, and then you see like what's a skeleton hand, and then they go back to that when John Saxon is being a tour, and he's like, oh, that's just a trophy. I was like, that's your hand, dude. What the hell? These guys kept his own skeleton in his hand and a stand. I was like,
that was so cool. Well, you made a good reference there about Han being a bad guy, and so we don't find out till later that he's the actor himself was a legitimate martial artist, and so the character here is as well.
Yeah.
And we find out a little bit later. One of the things about him as a bad guy is it's one of those typical drug lords, kind of cool or whatever. I mean, he's not Scaramanga level of cool, right? But that's like God tier, right?
Yeah.
So here, what I liked about him is one, even though he wasn't the biggest guy, and they're not all big, he still looked mean. He looked like he could handle himself. He walked with an air of authority, commanded respect. Even though they had the cat, right? Okay, so the hell with the cat and how they ripped off James Bond with that, right? I liked how, to your point, you mentioned where everybody just kind of stopped when he was talking. It seemed like he generally cared about this tournament. He seemed generally distressed that some of the guys, were trying to take cheap shots at the end, and then of course all hell breaks loose.
Yes,
I thought that was interesting too. And then the scene with John Saxon where he's walking them up, not just looking at the souvenirs and all that, when he's showing him the layers of his business operation, when they walk up to it and Saxon stops shorts and he's like, come on up here, put your head here or whatever. He's like, in the guillotine, no, I don't have any, I'm not going to do that. And he puts the cat in here. You're like, you motherfucker. And I'm like, yeah, cat violence. Not that I want to see it necessarily. I'm a dog guy and I love animals. But I thought that was kind of cool. They teased it because that was the secret way to go down. I'm like, you bastards, you got me. I love it. I'd forgotten about it. But he was so delightfully in charge without being stupid like the main bad guy. And you mentioned it, Doctor No, the first movie. Not tearing it all kind of stupid and loony, right?
Oh, I'm gonna die, and he goes, and then this guy actually did some flips, did some punches. He's actually more cunning. He's more deadly. We get to see him going against Jim Kelly, and Jim Kelly basically like being caught off guard because he has a freaking steel hand.
Yeah,
I thought those. So we would have noticed unless you're paying attention, and I like that because. When they're going through and everything, and like you see the hands and all stuff there. If you go back to what Bruce Lee and the kid was training on before he goes to the island here, he's like, kick me. He's like, no, not with emotion, with anger,
right.
And he points to me. He's like, you're focusing on this, but you're missing the big picture. Like that goes back to what goes in the movie. It's like you see all the stuff. You see the bad guys, the hands. Like I love how that all ties in, wraps in together.
Yeah, and the whole idea with excuse me, with the TV show Kung Fu with David Carradine being in it, it was really kind of a way to talk about Eastern philosophy that found its way into martial arts, not the fighting, but the morality part to it. And I always thought that was kind of cool. And some would say that was Bruce Lee's concept. I'm not 100% sure how true that is or how it worked out because I always loved that show. So yeah, all this stuff was huge. And obviously weapons and all the things. It was something refreshing and new and different. And it was modernized, old ninja and
Yeah.
martial arts. People kept them up in whatever cultures they grew up in, passed down through generations by practice and everything too. And martial, it's fighting, right? You're not
Yeah.
always going to have swords and weapons. If you're farmers, you're going to be dirt poor. So it was interesting when the blaxploitation angle in the 70s here in America took, people like that, like, the urban ghetto here, that new martial arts or something, rather than just being a pimp or a gangster. It was kind of interesting to see how people would apply it. And of course, James Bond even got into it later on with their martial arts. A couple other things I wanted to mention too, that about fighting, because I think that's one of the things people kind of actually don't really talk about this movie. They just talk about how great Bruce Lee is. I'm not going to say Bruce Lee wasn't fast. He had his
No.
whole thing. I remember reading his workout things and all that stuff, and people talk about how functionally strong he was versus absolute raw. He was obviously no weightlifter, really. I mean, lifting heavy weights. He lifted a little bit for his own God. So you all want to start ripping me. Let's bring it. But the thing is super fast, right? And the scenes
Yep.
that he's in where he gets to demonstrate it, it's great. We're ignoring it's all the stupid ninja stuff where people come at you one at a time, which is insultingly bad. It looked great. Some of the shots I thought were a little cramped. Some of them, the camera work I thought was weird. So I'm a little mixed on how well the action looks. Because you take somebody like John Saxon, who going up against Bolo Yeung, who's a barrel-chested, wide body power lifter. John Saxon, maybe 5'9", 5'10", rock hard kind of country looking body, strong, legitimate martial artist in his own right, judo guy, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
There's a few scenes where they're punching. I'm like, fuck, it looks like he's swinging like a little 10-year-old boy, just the way the angle is. But the problem I had with the main fight scenes at the end, before the released prisoners came out and it was a free-for-all, is everybody looks like they're moving at half speed. So Bruce is allowed to go full speed. So it looks like he's going faster than everybody else in the film.
Yeah.
That seemed absolutely deliberate. And I'm not even talking about the choreography. That's something I didn't think made the movie look that good or made me appreciate Bruce. It made me go, wait a minute. Jim Kelly's a legit guy, but it looks like he's pulling his punches like 50%. And I'm like, I just, again, it's not the greatest action scenes in a martial arts film. It's not.
Yeah, I mean, you'll see Jackie Chan later on at the end of the movie where he's actually when you see Bruce Lee's and he's in the little like factory there and he has the two sticks. He actually hit Jackie Chan's in the face. But I mean, overall, Bruce Lee looked good. He looked like he in shape and stuff. Doing. And I didn't know that yet. Anthony's saying that Yuen actually did the stunt work as far as the flips for Bruce Lee. Which really brings down my opinion of Bruce Lee even further because he could do going backflips.
I'm sure he could.
But I mean, like I said, Jim Kelly and John Saxon steal the whole entire freaking film, along with Ahna Capri, who plays like the pimp, the mistress. That's to me, that's the whole entire film is those three characters, along with Han, but like the mirror scene, like at the end. With apparently Bruce Lee having a piece of iron in order to punch the mirrors because he was going to do it.
That was a really there was a huge poster of Farrah Fawcett in the 70s, I think 75, 76, that was huge. And there was another one of Bruce Lee, like that with the scratches on him, because that is a great look. I mean, that's like BT, with the whole scene with the moon behind him that Spielberg repeats in other films. That was iconic, and it was. Like I say, they did a great job making Bruce Lee a star, or at least not that he could be more of a star because he was dead, right? But I mean, it really elevated what he had already done and what was important to him, which was demonstrating martial arts and everything too. So I do appreciate in a way that they didn't go overboard with 50 million things too, but it does make you appreciate when you see other films when they do different forms, whether it's like you're saying Jackie Chan with Drunken Master, or the one dude that did the weird cat stuff in the last movie that we watched. So I'm like, man, at least he sticks out. Or Richard Norton saying, hey, is that painful? And his, Australian kind of take on it.
The only thing I would have changed for this movie for the ending is having the girl at the end not die. Having her live, John Saxon needs a win,
I tell you, everyone always gives props to Shatner and even, about his wig and all that too. And a lot of people will, in hushed tones, talk about Sean Connery's that he wore for a lot of his career. But man, I'm telling you, you got a surprise entrance in the Chin of the Week potential candidate here in John Saxon, because then some of the fight scenes, I'm like, bro, you might be in your mid-30s. Take that off, man. Bald bald one, you get like +1 points with intimidation. He's got that look.
Yeah.
He's got a tough guy look.
And especially his breakout, his standalone scene in the very beginning where he's at the golf course and he's betting. He's like, oh yeah, and then he goes, the ball's there. I'm thinking like, is he just gonna go in there and just like, just chuck the ball himself, or have pay somebody else to hit it out for him, or whatever. He's just gonna con, because he's a con man. But then here comes the goons, like, yo, money. He's like, well, I still got,
They just happen to be there on the 9th hole while he hit a stray shot out of the rough, and he's deciding whether or not he's got to take a drop.
Yeah.
They just magically appear. It's just like a Bond movie.
Yeah. So I love it. And then they have the gun. He kicks the gun out, and then he basically beats the crap out of him. And then he's like, how much is left in the bank? $96. Here, you can keep it. And she's like, thanks.
That was kind of funny.
Oh yeah, kind of funny because she's a cheapskate.
That's kind of like the movie I want to see, and I'm glad you brought this scene up because I was going to, and here's why. This movie, like we say, we're calling it overrated. We're still saying it's a solid film worth seeing. It's definitely got a historical.
It's not the movie. It's not the movie's overrated. It's Bruce Lee that's overrated, I think, at least for this movie. He's not the star of this movie, even though he's supposed to be. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying,
Well, I'm glad you cleared that up.
Yeah.
But where some people might even say Star Wars is iconic, the first one, and you know how I feel about that. There's one movie that I think does a really good job of defining somebody's personality in it, and I'm going to go with Steve McQueen. I like a lot of Steve McQueen movies, but to me, he's more like a vibe. He's like a Tom Cruise kind of actor. He's a natural charisma. You just watch him because that's what you want to see. You don't care. Mm-hmm. And of course, people talk about Bullet, and of course, I'm going to be talking about. The golf scene is reminiscent of the Thomas Crown Affair, and I've said that the original Thomas Crown Affair, as much as I crap a little bit on James Bond and different things, we're reviewing them here, of course, on the Extreme Movie Show in order. We're getting ready to do Timothy Dalton's films, but peak Brosnan in The World Is Not Enough. He did his own remake of the Thomas Crown Affair. It's very sexy. I watch it because Bronson's in there. I still say Rene Russo and him have no chemistry in it. He's got his golf scene and all that, and it's cute and it's charming. John Saxon's character, I bet my house on it that they stole that from it because that's what he does. That's why he steals paintings. And when I see him on the golf course, I'm like, oh God, they're ripping off Thomas Crown. What the hell? Thomas Crown's got a better soundtrack, or at least some songs on it. But the soundtrack in here was great. I thought it was neat, and I did like the karate sounds in here. I got to say the whooshes and not the yelling, but the snapping and all that. That's what I like. I like hearing that smack. You know what I mean?
When they kick the leg and you hear the pants making noise, I love that. Yeah, the punches like that. Those are cool. Even though they're like sound effects, they had our.
If I recall even correctly.
Yeah.
When Bruce Lee was here, he trained a lot of people. I believe that was one of his clients actually as well. And so there's several others that worked with Bruce Lee. So sometimes on YouTube, if you look up Bruce Lee, you're going to start seeing all these older people that you have no idea who the hell they are.
Yeah.
And they'll talk about how Bruce was this, how he trained like this. This is what really happened. And, you have old people telling stories about old things. I don't think you have that now in the current generation, but it's part of those things that, like, Bruce is also benefited the fact that he's left such an impact on people like a Chuck Norris, who has nothing but good things to say about him and being a training partner going forward. Later on, you kind of pay that forward with, say, JCVD a little bit and others here if you're a States fan. So I just think, I agree with you about him. I like the seriousness of him. But I always thought in this film he comes across as a little ass, like, bro, let the fart out or something, I mean, I get that you're dialed in, but the movie that's in here that could be a lot funner is the spy stuff with John Saxon and Jim Kelly and the ladies. It's like, if Bruce, if you went away and there was a second film in this, I would watch it.
There was some humor with Bruce Lee, very little though. The boat scene where the guy, or John Saxon, or not John Saxon, it was the other guy, the Kiwi, the New Zealand guy, basically, like, he's pushing the kids around, and he's like, well, what's your style? Not fighting.
Yeah.
Like, what? And he's like, the guy's like, well, we go settle. He's like, yeah, we're going to boat. We'll get on this boat. And he says, like, Bruce Lee's like, get on the boat and we'll go to the island and we'll dig it out. The guy gets in the boat and Bruce Lee is like, idiot, and ties it. And then he gives it to the kids that he was beating up. He's like, hold on the rope. And he's like, and the boat's like, actually, like, I couldn't tell if the boat was actually because it pulled along, was being full of water, or if it actually had a hole in it. But either way, it was funny though. And that guy gets his ass kicked really easily in the very beginning too. I
mean, it's really basic storytelling. I mean, it's not even fair or fun because you know what's going to happen. I mean, this is as simplistic as it gets, you know. It really, really is. And again, that's not a bad thing, but I'm sure everybody in every scene, okay, we're doing this in this scene here because we're going to have him go forward later on, and then that'll be the first opponent that Bruce gets to beat up. We're going to slow everybody down so when he comes on
Yeah,
screen, it's going to look even faster.
but what you say about this being a Bond movie, I totally agree. Though, I mean, even at the very end, the British soldiers showed up. We already finished. It's like it's basically all you had to do is John Saxon take the blonde if she's alive, go in a boat and kiss her. You know, it's like where are you? You know, having John Saxon be the agent would have been more fun for me though. Like, you know, like I mean, literally this could be like the American version of like Doctor No. Uh, if you really wanted to go into it, having John Saxon being like the Bond character, the secret agent, and coming across Bruce Lee as the bad guy, that would have been great, and him have to deal with that and then pull out a gun. it's literally it'd be like Indiana Jones. No, honestly though, like I said, Bruce Lee, I think. I don't know how so many people like him. I don't understand it. I don't appeal. That's great that they do. I'm not gonna knock them and say like, "Oh, you guys are idiots for liking this guy." I'm just saying I'd rather watch Jackie Chan. I'd rather watch Yuen, Sammo Hung. Hell, I'll take a Jet Li movie. I'll watch the freaking one or another Bruce Lee movie. But the only reason I'll venture into watching another Bruce Lee movie because Chuck Norris, Way of the Dragon. As to him saying it has a better story and a better cinematic approach.
Yeah.
Chuck Norris playing a bad guy. I kind of want to see this. And I guess Jackie Chan's is also in there too, I think, right? Because he was part of the stunt group.
Well, the fight between him and Chuck Norris is really legendary. People talk about all the time, and it really is badass. It really is cool. It's all the kind of things that we think of as guys where nobody's cheap shot, and they're two warriors going at it. There's a cat in there too. That's all I'm going to say.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we've kind of half joked about with movies that you got to go through all your chumps to go up the boss and all that. Well, that comes directly from Bruce Lee in the movie that has Kareem in it, because Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who was Lou Alcindor before he converted to Islam,
eating kung fu. I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, well, he credits. Well, he Kareem always said he smoked a lot of pot, but he did like yoga and all this kind of stuff and stretching because it kept him limber, because he's like was an unstoppable force, and he was one of the first guys to really play like 20 years in the NBA, and he came on board with somebody who's the greatest basketball player of all time, Wilt Chamberlain. They had these famous battles going back and forth, but Wilt was on his last leg, and then Kareem was like the man. And then years later, you'd have Larry Bird and Michael Jordan, basically Magic Johnson, the whole 80s thing. But Bruce Lee was known for having trained Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and, like I say, Steve McQueen, a bunch of others. John Saxon and him, I think, are even buried next to each other, Seattle or Tacoma or wherever it's at. So Bruce Lee, not only did he do these things and have impact, like with the boss level kind of idea, and that's kind of cool, and video games take that, right? It's the fact that he had an impact with working with people. Same thing with Chuck Norris. That's why when we talked about all of Chuck Norris's films, people were like, I don't get it. He doesn't really do a lot. And it's like, no, he's following a certain format he's figuring out, but he's legit, and his movies got better as a result of that. I do think if Bruce Lee didn't overdose and all that, if he had stayed around and all that, because he had a particular vision for what he wanted to do, much like Chuck Norris and some other martial artists that are legit, I think his films would have gotten even better. I'm not going to say bigger hit like this one, but I think he would have had the ability to pick and choose what he wanted to do, and I think his storytelling and everything else would have gotten better. Because, like other people are saying in chat here, that there is better, cinematography, filmography, and stories in his other two movies that he did. And I will say this as a kid, hearing about Bruce Lee, and he was dead. It was the first time I ever saw over commercialization in print with Bruce Lee starring in The Way of Death, and the last name would be L.E. or L.E.I. or something, where they bastardize his name and all that just for a knockoff film. And it's like, are you serious, bro?
I want to point out he didn't overdose. He had an allergic reaction to medication.
Allegedly.
Headache medication. But I mean, I'm not there. You can choose the side you want to, but it's one that pointed out. But anyway,
he's talking about the influence of Bruce Lee. I think Bruce had a standard, and I think he had a very particular idea, and that's one thing you and I've talked about. If you're going to do something and you're going to do it a certain way, be coherent. It may not be something that people understand or like or even get, but I think that's the appeal of Bruce Lee. He kept it really simple here. He did everything right. that's a hard thing to do sometimes because you want to get all your shit in,
And
right?
you talk about influence with Bruce Lee, Jim Kelly, and John Saxon in this movie. Jackie Chan definitely took, and him, Sammo Hung took the inspiration from that and got with Yuen Bao, and they did their own movies. My Lucky Stars and a few other movies. They all worked together because it's like, why not? If you have two guys that are popular, add a third guy, and have that guy play like the straight guy, as far as the serious guy, it actually does work out well. It's just that this movie, like I said, if Bruce Lee had continued doing more movies, I think he would have ventured more into a less serious. He would have did more jokey stuff. But not. I don't think he'd be like Jackie Chan, but he'd probably be more likable. I'd say.
Yeah, because he's got that kind of like serious look on his face, which I like. But if he smirks a little bit, I'm like, you little prick. I'm like, but I would like that, right?
Yeah, like he said, like like he's kind of seemed like he's gonna offend him, but he did wink though in this movie though. Like when you see him, he does that. They're all sitting in the room waiting for Han to show up.
Yeah,
and he kind of looks over at at Saxon, who's got all the girls over, and he looks over and he's like, he
yeah,
looks at him, and he's like, and then Jackson, he's like, so when are you giving me back my $100 you took from me? Because they had that scene on the boat with the praying mantis fighting each other, and like Saxon being the constant gambler, he's like, he is addiction to that. He basically bets, and loses because Bruce Lee bets on the little guy, little mantis, who basically bites the other one in the leg, affects him with the poison, kills him.
yeah. And there's something too to the backstory between John Saxon and Jim Kelly, because they were war buddies, right? So you got a white guy and a black guy that were war buddies, came out of it. They've got totally different things. You think Saxon's a player, then you realize he's a gambling addict and broke, despite all his appearances front, and people are after him for money. So he's kind of running, even though he's slick and cool and you want to like him. But then you've got Kelly, who you go, okay, is he a militant? Is because they were the whole Black Power thing at the beginning with the fists and all that.
I feel like he was basically done with the racist cops.
Yeah.
And in '73, there was still racism, but it's not like it is today. I think it's actually got worse today because the useful idiots. But honestly, I like the fact that he was just trying to get out of there, and he was all about making money, winning. That was his thing. I just want to have fun. I want to win,
and look good.
Yes, and look good. He's like, and like I love how Han says when it's like, well, you got to put up the feet. It's like, well, I don't even see it coming because I'll be too busy looking good, when I know and get the feet. I'm like, dude, you just said, like, I'm thinking like, that sealed his death right there before I even knew he gets bumped off. I was just like, dang, he's gonna get killed. Not only that, they think that he was the one that thought it because Bruce Lee snuck out the same time he went out, because basically after he got Jim Kelly gets up with the girls, he's gonna go outside and train, and the girl's like, no, it's forbidden, you can't go outside. He's like, whatever. He goes outside, does his thing. He's just fighting, just doing his dance training. Of course, Bruce Lee goes out and screws it over for him. Basically, Bruce Lee's the reason why he died.
That's right, Bruce.
Yeah, Bruce got his character got Jim Kelly to get killed, and Jim Kelly had saw Bruce Lee sneaking up, towards the end of the wall. And the guy Han wanted to know who it was, but he wouldn't tell.
Yes,
because he's not a snitch.
So much for your morality there, bro. Yeah, Kelly goes down. You know what? Maybe they could have a sequel where Kelly like survives or something like that, and then goes beat the shit out of Bruce because Bruce didn't stick up for him, and he violated the bro code. I mean, and then maybe Saxon says, "Hey, you know what, Bruce? I had something good possibly here at the island. The ladies wanted me as their leader and all that. We could have just chilled and lived our last lives here, and you got to go muck it all up. What's wrong, bro?"
See, I would have loved when Saxon goes evil at the end, and Saxon just beats the shit out of him because he killed my bro. Like, dude, like, because he went
kill my brother, my number one whore over there is dead on the ground.
Because they were bond. They served. They fought in the war together. What tie does he have to Bruce Lee?
And I will say this. As hokey and cheesy as the stuff here and so on, that's part of the appeal with the and all the yelling stuff you mentioned at the beginning. The scene where Saxon is standing there with Han, and Han's like, I know you're wanting to know why I'm bringing you into all this is because I want you to be a partner. And he's standing there talking to him. You got him being just hung up there above. I don't know if it was supposed to be acid. I'm like, that was kind of creepy looking. I'm like, that looked good, but you're hanging a black guy up there in the background. I'm like, yeah, in the 70s, I think people probably took that a little deeper, and I'm sure that was intentional.
Well, my thing would have been much more bad, more evil if he's still alive. They show him he's just barely breed up, and then he lets him go, and then just that would have been much more like disturbing if Jim Kelly had been alive still, at least tied up, and then they cut the rope, let him drown to death. Oh man, that would have been hardcore. But instead, they already killed them.
Yeah.
And then strung them up there for just display. This is what happens to people who don't want to do what I wanted to do. It's like, nah, bro. That's like, all you're gonna do is you're pissing off John Saxon. But he said somebody snuck on somebody snuck outside. They all got, because they announced it. My guards. He killed his Bolo, kill his guards that failed him, and when he finds out at the end, that Bruce Lee is kind of like the secret agent guy. It's like, dude, that's when he lost his girl because of Bruce Lee, and also lost his best friend because of Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee should have been stabbed in the back at the end.
Unfortunately, when all these thoughts start going through your head, that means the movie didn't capture your attention enough or held it, and I can see that.
Honestly, I got an hour into this movie and I started browsing Twitter, because that's how bored it was until the very end. I came back and watched it finally at the last 40 minutes, and it wasn't until after Jim Kelly basically gets confronted and stuff. That's when I was like, the Bolo Yeung scene and all that stuff. That's when it actually started picking up for me.
Yeah,
this movie it was too long. It's too long of a movie with Harley, and then the best parts is the end of the movie. So just cut those other parts out. Cut them down to like 5-15 minutes.
Right.
But
I'll say the last thing too is one thing we always talk about is even though I still think to this day Cynthia Rothrock does weapons the best, at least what I've seen so far, definitely better than what happens in this film.
I'm a fan or Mark for chase scenes, fugitive stuff. We watched that with
the running and jumping, and I love that, the physical stuff.
Yeah, like this was just kind of like, we're gonna go slow when you find this. It really was set the pace of a Bond movie.
Yeah.
And for a kung fu movie, it doesn't really work for me.
Yeah, I think the voiceover work by bad guy Han, that was by Key Luke or whatever his name is. He's the guy that does the work in that show I mentioned from the 70s. And God, it's 50 years ago. We're talking Kung Fu with David Carradine in it from the Carradine clan in Hollywood. And whenever I think of a mentor's voice, I always think of that voice. So I'm listening to it going, that's not him talking. That's got to be a dub. I'm like, that's the Kung Fu master. And I looked up, I'm like, damn it, there you go. So here's the thing with this movie, for my final thoughts, RDV. Yeah. I think it's a good film with okay martial arts in it. I understand it's got historical perspective because of how cultural everybody, just what it did at the time. It's worth seeing to kind of sit there and go, sometimes you just don't see a movie coming and it gets really, really big, and it's bigger than probably what it should be. You could argue the same thing for I See Dead People, right? And then you find out the twist of that movie. Then you're like, oh, it's not that good a movie. It's like, yeah, it fucking got you. That was more clever than this film by any means.
Like I said, I'm for being labels it as the greatest martial arts movie. It's only got 7.6 out of 10.
I know, but there's also the cultural people that are pushing the narrative versus the people that want to do it. We see people hate review today. We know that things that come out,
and this isn't
you can't trust reviews. You just can't. So that's why we just talked about it.
And this isn't a hate review.
No, not at all.
No. Definitely, it is a good movie. It's just not a great movie.
But it's the thing where, again, if you have any interest in martial arts at all, you see this movie, because anything else that you see, whether it's modern or old stuff or some of the quirky stuff we pick out or personal picks, and you compare it, and then you start realizing in terms of martial arts movies, it's not bad, but it's everybody else in the field is gonna be like, yeah, it was good, it was successful, but it's not. The martial arts itself isn't all that great.
The reason I didn't like it because it had more story than martial arts.
And I'm fine with that.
And it's like
you want volume, sir.
I want more than one kick at the end of the movie. Impatient USA.
Chuck Norris did that so good. He gave you the one kick. It was over, and the whole thing's to build up for it. This should not have been a John Wick.
This is like your argument as far as like there's too many guns. I want more martial arts.
Yeah. I like people beating each other up.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's
but I don't want everybody standing around watching, and coming in ninja style. I can't stand that.
One at a time. Yeah, it drove me nuts too. But at least the one guy was getting choked out by Bolo Yeung. The other guy tried to hit him from behind. That was like, if they all would have worked together, attacking at once, they probably could have, defeated him, because look how easy he got defeated by Jim Saxon or John Saxon.
Go break some more next Bolo. There's a script I need to write.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it said this movie. If you're looking for fights, fast forward to the last 40 minutes. If you want story, watch up until there's only 40 minutes left, and then just stop watching. Because
any other final thoughts?
Final thoughts. Maybe we'll do Way of the Dragon, or whatever it's called. The next one. Maybe
Game
on
of
Sunday.
Death. As opposed to Dawkins' song "Kiss of Death."
No, I need some Dream Theater. Honestly, this is a good movie, and I look forward to watching maybe another Way of the Dragon, at least because they had Chuck Norris. But honestly, I would love to go back to do some more Jackie Chan stuff too, because Jackie Chan just seems like it has the balance of martial arts with story. That's done really well.
Right. Yeah, and ladies and gentlemen, obviously we're not just doing martial arts. We're just in the phase now because we've kind of underserved over the past year.
We're an extreme martial arts show now.
Yeah, right. We've just been catching up with it too. I appreciate the people that are new to the channel that have been retweeting it out, and of course, our Columbo season 1 review has been doing pretty well too. The Young 20-something Professor Pixel and I have been reviewing that. So the next episode 6, I believe, will be coming out on Sunday.
Check out the playlist I've been putting together, so you guys go watch the older reviews, give them some love. Yeah. Because obviously they're not as creative as we were here. It was just us, the two floating icons. Sometimes
it's weird because we've been debating what TV show to do next, and we've talked about for our season 1 review, episode by episode, we've talked about T.J. Hooker. We've talked about maybe Millennium or X-Files, maybe even Hannibal, which is great. One, we might throw in some lighthearted stuff. It just depends. So if you guys are looking for something like that, like we're doing with Columbo, let us know. I will definitely take that under advisement. It's pretty interesting, and that's kind of what we do. Is again, we just come in here, we talk the films, we try not to get too political, too crazy about it. We like to have a little fun with it, but we like to talk about what we like, what we didn't like, what works, what doesn't work, and compare it to other stuff that we've done. So that way, if you're starting to browse some of the older material that we have on here, again, RDV has gone through and curated some of the material as far as, like, say, the Chuck Norris list or the Steven Scullis or JCVD. Have we done all of them? No. Have we done them all in order? We've done a lot of significant ones, and we've done some obscure ones too. Like, I'd say the greatest ninja movie of all time is, Revenge of the Ninja, which is the second in the ninja trilogy from Canon Films, and Enter the Ninja with Franco Nero. The Ninja is the number 1 film, is like the second best ninja movie of all time, kind of jokingly. But again, when you watch Enter the Dragon and you compare other martial arts films to it, you start going, okay, if this is supposed to be the gold standard that we set everything to, you realize things aren't necessarily that bad, even by 80s goofy standards that you and I talk about.
Drunken Master for me. Drunken Master or Young Master, if it's high enough, Jackie Chan, like those.
Yep.
If you're looking for martial arts stuff, with a little bit older style, like it's set like in the 1800s or whatever, so that I love stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I also love, when you get the more modern stuff, like Police Story is just crazy. The stunts he's doing there when he's basically he's in the mall and he grabs on the lights and this basically drops down, popping all the light bulbs in his hands. I'm like, that's all in one take.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love
the last movie we did had some tremendous fight scenes in it.
Oh,
better than this film, in my opinion.
Not Tiger Cage. It was the other one. It was Righting Wrongs.
Yeah, with Cynthia Rothrock in it and female martial artists. They had a fight in the mall. I'm still thinking about going.
Dude,
damn, that really surprised me how good it was. And the house fight scene. Yeah. I'm like, damn, they're really crushing it with that. That's the kind of stuff that if you're really into it, you're gonna like.
Betty Chung plays Mei Ling in here. She basically is in here. She was the spy.
Okay.
Who that was. The other one at the very beginning was Su Lin, Angel Mao, who basically, you see her, that plays Bruce Lee's sister in the very beginning, where she's being chased by the goons, and then how she commits seppuku because she doesn't want to get raped.
Yep.
Honestly, I want more. I would rather have her versus Cynthia Khan, or versus Cynthia Rothrock. Give me some more good lady Street Fighter movies like that. I love that stuff.
All right, everybody, have a good night. Thanks for watching, listening. As always, stay extreme. Good night now.
Good night.